Hello, I'm Kate Davies and I'm the author of In at the Deep End. In at the Deep End is a novel about a 26-year-old Londoner called Julia who realises that she hasn't had sex for 3 years. So she sets out to break her sex drought and has the worst one-night stand in the history of sex when a man accuses her of breaking his penis. But luckily, she soon realises that she's actually a lesbian. And she thinks, hooray, now I'm going to have a truly equal relationship and lots of really feminist sex. But it doesn't quite turn out that way. I'm here at Waterstones Piccadilly and I would like to tell you about 3 of the books that inspired me when I was writing In at the Deep End. So first of all, we've got The Amazing Heartburn by Nora Ephron. Nora Ephron is one of my very favourite writers, particularly one of my favourite screenwriters. She wrote When Harry Met Sally and You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle. And this is her only novel, which is a very short, very brilliantly written account of her divorce, the breakdown of her marriage, very thinly disguised. And it is such a funny book. And her dialogue is spot on. And when I was writing my book, I went back to this novel over and over again to see how Nora Ephron wrote dialogue, because it's so perfect. And it's very wry and restrained all the way through the book. You kind of feel like the character isn't necessarily that affected by the breakdown of her marriage, but then right at the end, she hits you with this incredibly emotional sucker punch, and it's so effective. And I just remember finishing this book, walking down the street, sobbing. And it's just so funny, so charming, and so sad. So everybody read it if you haven't. So I'm now in the romantic fiction section, picking up one of my very favourite novels of all time, which is One Day by David Nicholls. I'm sure lots of you have read this book. It has been a hugely influential novel to me. David Nicholls is such a brilliant observer of people and relationships and the way people interact and the way they speak. And again, this is a book that's full of dialogue. My book is also full of dialogue, which is why I'm so obsessed with these novels. And One Day follows 2 people from the night that they meet over 20 years, seeing one day in their lives every single year. And it's just brilliant the way he captures time as it changes and their shifting relationship. And again, so funny and so moving. And you should definitely read it if you haven't. For my final choice, I have chosen Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which was absolutely an influence on my novel because, like In at the Deep End, this is a lesbian coming-of-age story in which a woman has a lot of sex. It's a brilliant, brilliant story about a young woman who lives in Whitstable, who falls in love with a woman that she sees at a music hall, and they start a relationship, and then Nan King just throws herself into lesbian life and travels all over Britain having a lot of sex. And it's brilliantly written. Sarah Waters writes sex so well, better than almost anybody. And I definitely studied the way she writes sex scenes when I was writing mine. So highly recommend this novel.